AITA for telling my dad's wife I owe her nothing. I see her as needy, clingy, overly emotional and annoying. She sees me as cold, mean and selfish. She married my dad when I was 9 and forced herself into things I didn't want her in and honestly, things she didn't belong in given the circumstances. And by that I mean I had known her for 3 months because she and my dad had a long-distance relationship, and we hadn't spent that much time together prior. The things she tried to force herself into were the traditions I had with my mom. She pushed her way to be there for every single one of them. My friendships, she would tell me who I should and shouldn't be friends with and really pushed friendships on me when she hardly knew me. Then again, she heard more about me from my dad than I ever heard about her. She pushed herself into my grief. She always claimed I needed to talk and open up to her, not just to anyone, but to her. She would demand it, follow me around trying to get it. And then she invited herself along to my therapy, which then invalidated therapy for me because I refused to participate with such a new person there. She was very much into the idea that our relationship came before other relationships, and so she would make me spend time with her over my friends because I was resistant to her. My dad was pretty quiet during it all, and honestly I didn't blame him enough back in the day, and now he knows how I feel about his part in it all. She would hug me without consent and squeeze so I couldn't push her off. She would try to kiss me and get annoyed if I blocked her, and she would hold my hand when I didn't like it. So the other night she told me she was tired of having me keep her out of my life, that she loved me and my dad and was a good stepmom and wife and she deserved to be acknowledged, loved and appreciated for it. I didn't answer her, which made her more angry, and she snapped and she told me I was being mean to her for no reason. And then I told her that just because my dad loved her didn't mean I did or would, and I did not owe her my love or anything. I told her straight up I owed her nothing. I wanted to go deeper, but my dad stepped in and told me to apologize. This is when, for the second time, I told him he wasn't innocent in all of this either, and I let him know exactly where he fucked up. We're not talking now. I wanted to say so much more, and if my dad hadn't stepped in, more home truths would have come from me. AITA. I'm 17, female, turning 18 in less than 2 weeks. She sees everything different. So does my dad. Story 2. AITA for kicking out my sister, brother-in-law, and their kids after months of living in chaos. During the middle of the pandemic, my brother-in-law got laid off, and, because they could no longer afford rent, my sister, her husband, and their 3 kids aged 5 to a newborn moved in with me. I, 22 male, live in a small flat. But since I work nights and sleep most of the day, it's sorta like they live in the flat and I'm just some random guy. I understand that kids are very hard to take care of, but I expected my sister to at least try and keep the flat clean. That would be a hard no, since every time I come home, there's dirty dishes all over the place and toys on the floor and it just smells awful. I don't know what it is, and neither does my sister, evidently, but it's terrible. The eldest colored all over the wall and spilt juice all over my rug. She also broke several fragile glass figurines that I inherited from my mother, who has passed away. My sister, we don't share the same mother, disregarded all of these things, and when I got upset, just told me to get over it because her kid didn't mean it. I've had to get rid of a chair because the second eldest vomited all over it and nothing that save it. The youngest cried a lot, and it understandably irritated my neighbors, who never said anything to the landlady but did come over multiple times to complain. I have sat my sister down and explained my frustrations to her multiple times, but she just doesn't care. I have tried to explain everything to my brother-in-law, but he's rarely home, despite not having a job yet, even though it's been months. The kids were up at the same time that I was asleep, and they constantly ran in and out of my room, screaming their little heads off. I love them, really, but I couldn't deal with that, especially since you have to be alert and present in my line of work, security guard. The final straw for me was that somebody, more than likely the eldest child, let loose my leopard geckos. It took hours, and although I finally managed to find all of them, it was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I told my sister that she had to leave and that I couldn't take it anymore. It's been a week since then. I have gotten no word from my sister, but the rest of our family has been calling non-stop, demanding to know how I could just kick my niece and nephews onto the street. AITA. Story 3. AITA for not wanting to share a windfall with my heavily pregnant stepdaughter who normally pretends I don't exist. I entered a raffle 18 months ago and won a house in my name. I wasn't expecting to win, and the house is worth a few bob, so as you can imagine I'm over the moon since I paid a couple of quid for the entry. It's tucked away in Wales where I will never settle or live. I'm in south of England, but I entered on a whim, and as I say, wasn't really expecting to win. I'm in my 40s and have some younger half-siblings, all of whom I love very much and would like to care for. My stepdaughter is a similar age, is pregnant. She was raised in a very stable home with love and attention to her education from both her dad and mum. However, at present she isn't working because of issues. She doesn't have her own home and has moved in with her out-of-work boyfriend who we think has overstayed his visa. So really I understand she is in a precarious position. I was never especially close with her because she resented I was with her dad, no cheating or anything. She just felt I was in the way as kids often do despite me trying very hard to form a relationship with her. I can't have my own bio children and was very keen to gain a daughter, friend, but life circumstances have meant it's been hard to relate to her or her to me. When I found out about the house, I wanted to gift it to my younger two siblings. Both work from home and would love the house. They had zero advantages growing up. In fact, due to their mum being a POC, I feel they had more disadvantages, and they live in a rough area of London at present. I think they deserve it and they'd love it. Husband and I have no inclination to move and we could sell it on, but we don't want to right now. My stepdaughter, on the other hand, is extremely well connected and has lots of benefits that have helped her along, and although I empathize with her struggles and pregnancy, I also know that she will hopefully be fine. My husband is already supporting her with a large allowance each month as well as her mum. She called me after months of not properly speaking to me to ask when she can move in. I had discussed clearly with my husband the plan for the house, to which he agreed and was surprised. I said she's not getting the house. She was pretty shocked and said she's pregnant and the house is literally right there. And why would I stop her from having a good head start? I tried to gently explain to her, but the conversation got more and more heated, with eventually her pulling her dad into it. Somehow during the end of this conversation, both my husband and stepdaughter were crying and asking me to reconsider, saying I was being heartless and possibly even cruel by not. I honestly feel very frustrated and probably quite bitter. She was happy to not talk to me for months despite me reaching out multiple times, but the moment I have something she wants, it's "Oh hi Leslie, how are you?" I just feel even more like I want to dig my heels in at this point. Story 4. AITA for telling my half-sister, my dad, and her friends that I am my dad's only daughter. My older half-sister, 27 female, and I, 24 female, have different dads. Hers was an abusive deadbeat who left the picture and didn't contact her until she was 16. He told her she had to choose between him and my dad. She chose her birth father. My dad is extremely wounded by her choice. He tells me how he feels he was never a good enough father because of her decision. It's been over a decade since she spoke to him, and he's missed out on her graduation, her wedding, and the birth of his granddaughter. It wasn't until this year that she started speaking to my dad again, and that's only to ask for money. Her birth father likes to regularly remind her that he will cut her off if he finds any communication between her and my dad. A few weeks ago, I was FaceTiming my dad at my sister's house with a couple of her friends. I FaceTime him regularly, and my sisters never once bothered poking her head in and saying hi or anything. This was the first time her friends were there while I did this. My dad made a comment about wanting to say hi to her, and when I turned the screen, she just brushed it off. He asked me to try again, and I told him, "She's not your daughter. I'm your only daughter. You don't need her." My dad was incredibly hurt by this comment and said, "She's still my little girl. She's my daughter just as much as you are. I raised her too." Her friend asked, "You guys have different dads." I didn't know that. That makes a lot more sense. I was confused when your sister said her dad lived in this town, but Opus is talking about her dad living across the country. I reasserted to her friend that I am my dad's only daughter. My sister gave me a sideways look, and I asked, "What? You only talk to my dad when you want money?" She didn't say anything, but my dad told me to stop. Later on, he texted me about how hurt he was that her friends don't even know he exists. My sister acted completely unbothered about the entire situation. My dad says he understands, but that I'm an asshole for being mean to my sister. The rest of our family, except my sister, who again doesn't seem to care, says I'm an asshole for saying that and for pointing out that we're only half siblings because that shouldn't matter, which I think it does, especially in this case. Her friends are just confused that they've known her for years and that she never once mentioned my dad despite the fact that he raised her. So Reddit, AITA. Update, apologizing to my dad later. Showed my brothers 23 and 20 who told me she not only uses my dad for money, but that her bio dad gives her a large sum every month. She's also now asking my mom for cash. Guess it's not about who parents, but about who literally pays.